All right, I have David Thomas here from Parker Sporlan, and we're going to talk about filter dryers, or I call them filter dryers, but you guys have a unique name, Catch-All, right? That's your
That's right.
trade name. All right, and so you guys obviously, I would almost argue that this is where you made your name, was with filter dryers. I mean, would that be true?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, so we did come out as the Sporlan Valve Company, so
Got you.
Kind of our bread and butter is mechanical expansion valves, but then we quickly realized that there was mechanical valves that came back with problems, even though we couldn't find any workmanship issues. And we found that there was contamination in the system, and that's when we came out with our first filter dryer in 1947, believe it or not, Chris.
Got you. Now, I mean, I honestly have not seen a major design change in the filter dryer in a very long time. So obviously you guys made a good product that has worked for you through the time, right?
Absolutely, and there has been some changes under the hood, let's call it, which is the core. So when we originally launched the product, we used silica gel, which is that little pack of beads in shoes to retain moisture.
Gotcha.
We transitioned to molecular sieve and activated alumina, as well as activated charcoal in our HH cores as well. So the traditional core uses two desiccants, which is molecular sieve for moisture or water, and then activated alumina for acid.
So in your HH cores, because you know, there's a lot of people, and even myself included, that used to call those a high acid dryer in the HH core, but it's not really high acid per se, is it?
It's not, yeah, you're spot on, Chris. So the reason why people think of that is because we do recommend it for after a compressor burnout.
Right.
And there is high acid content after a compressor burnout. But what the HH core does catch is the waxes and sludges that are produced after a burnout.
So with the acidic burnout, maybe the protective insulation on the windings of the motor, the wax from that, from being deteriorated by the acid, breaks through the system, and the HH core is there to really remove those waxes per se. But we've kind of called it a high acid dryer. But I mean, it's still kind of a roundabout way that we put on high acid systems, but.
Yeah, precisely. So if you are seeing high acid content in like a TA-1 kit, the oil test kit, we actually do recommend just the standard catch-all, or if you're doing replaceable cores, the RCA 48 or RCA 100.
Cool, very, very cool.
The A stands for acid.
The A stands for acid,
exactly.
Okay, gotcha.
And then W, we have the W as well, which stands for water.
Okay, and then so these are the removable cores, so these are going to be more on the heavy commercial, heavy industrial.
Precisely.
Now, I've seen them, I don't do a lot of work with them, but what's the max capacity? I've seen some of these that have a double stack on the bigger ones.
Yeah, we actually have 4 core shells.
Really?
So you can fit 4 of them. That's the max capacity.
Really? That's really interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right, and again, we're continuing to talk to David, and it looks like right here we have some R290 and or propane components here. Why don't we talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a copper spun dryer, which is that copper cylinder you see there. That has a holding capacity of only 2 grams. So when you're getting into these micro systems that have charge limits for R290 or propane, like you mentioned, you know, we want the smallest vessel as possible that's going to hold the least amount of refrigerant, and so that's what that is kind of optimized to do. Is it's small, holds very little refrigerant. So it uses 100% molecular sieve, beaded desiccant. But what we're seeing in the industry is a trend of increased charge limitations. So as those limitations increase, we think that there's going to be opportunity to use the smaller catch-all, the O32S, which we also have right next to it.
Definitely, and one of the more important things is, you know, you mentioned the charge limitations. So I think it just got increased, or it's still in legislation or whatever, but originally it was 150 grams that we could have. So it's really important that your dryer size is correct, because you can really change the amount of needed refrigerant if you put an oversized dryer on there. Now, it's common of me when I'm working on bigger systems to oversize my dryers, and you will have to compensate a little bit, but when we're dealing with critically charged systems, it's really important that we understand that adding bigger dryers can affect our system operation, and technically, because we would have to overcharge the system past the charge limitations, we could be setting ourselves up for a liability situation. So, so it looks like with the new charge limitations that we're seeing, some of them, not on everything, but on open cases and different things like that, they're going to 500 grams. That's where potentially we can use the standard O32 dryer
Exactly.
in the future. So
yeah,
you
so
guys
the
are-
new standard is UL 60335-2-89.
That's a lot of numbers.
Yeah, that was a lot. I'm glad I rattled that off. But and so we're seeing, like you mentioned, 300 grams for closed cases and 500 grams for open cases. So that's where we see the opportunity for the catch-all. Also, keep in mind that you already mentioned when you're servicing equipment, that catch-all has activated alumina, which gives you acid capacity, which you wouldn't have in the copper spun 100% molecular sieve core desiccant.
Got you. And it looks like you guys have a line right here of R290 expansion valves. These look interesting, and I'm really intrigued because I like the removable strainer. That is really cool. I've yet to see that on a smaller valve like that.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's our new NX valve, which is a refrigeration valve. So you can use it on R290 as well as some of the 448, 449, and other refrigerants like that. But it utilizes a stainless steel capillary tube and bulb. It's right now only available to OEMs, but you're definitely going to be seeing that more in the industry.
Yeah, maybe potentially in the future we can see that on the aftermarket line once some of the regulations and restrictions come away from R290. But that's really cool.